thank you so much for watching this video. So today's object is this black cat. So how do you layer a black cat or any other animal? First of all, one thing I want you to remember is to never really use black straight out of a tube. You will create more dimension and create a natural shade of that black by using colors. So you want to create your own shade of black. You can choose the colors you want to use, or you can go with the colors I recommend, but I switch them up all the time. The most important thing is to create your own shade of black, and you want to start with undertones. In this case, I started with blue undertones. So I used shades of blue, maybe a little bit of red. Of course, you can start with green undertones if you want to, yellow undertones. A different cat I painted, I actually used Van Dyke Brown, burnt sienna, and some raw sienna. Those were my first colors, and then on top of that, I started adding the darks. The sketch, of course, is very important because if we're painting a pet, maybe you have a commission and you want to really make that dog look like the reference image, right? So that's when sketch becomes really important because of those proportions. Once you have a sketch, and don't worry about like having a lot of like lines from the pencil, because the layering, all this layering will cover it up. You won't even see those sketch lines. Once you wet the paper and you apply the colors wet on wet, a lot of times when I paint a black cat or a black dog, I will actually lift colors to create highlights instead of using masking fluid. However, here in this painting, I did use masking fluid for watercolors. If you're new to my channel and you don't know much about me, I also sell watercolor brushes. These are brushes designed by me, and my Songbird line is handmade by Da Vinci in Germany. So we designed these brushes together, and there is one more brush I am working on, which is a brush that can be used with masking fluid for watercolors. I cannot wait till this brush is out. Until then, I just use my testers basically, and they work amazing because you can see how fine these lines are. Please let me know if you have any questions, and please join me on Patreon, and please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Hello friends, and welcome to this new class. So we're going to paint a black cat. So I suggest not using black straight out of a tube, but instead mixing your own colors. Back then, like 6-7 years ago, I'd paint the cat a little differently. It wouldn't be like as much wet on wet. A lot of it was wet on dry. But you see the blue undertones there as well. Did a test piece for myself. You can see that I used blue undertones and some browns and reds. So this is not finished yet. I still have masking fluid and so on. And talking about masking fluid, actually, we do need to use some masking. We don't have to, because we could also lift colors. But why? It's because the cat has these whiter whiskers. Those are highlights. So what I suggest doing is using an old rigger brush to apply masking. This is my test brush. This is going to become part of my line of masking fluid brushes. So I've been working with Da Vinci on creating a brush to use with masking. So masking or brush that wouldn't be damaged from using masking fluid. So I'm going to use this one, but you can use an old rigger brush, which I have done in the past. The brush is a little flattened. This is a little larger size, so actually the actual masking brush is going to be smaller. But where do I have these whiskers? I see hair over here. So I'm very gentle the way I apply the hair detail. And I want you to do the same thing. It's kind of like you're almost not touching the paper. Very gently. You can add some dots here and there too. You know, it's hard to see it. It's because I have to position my arm so I create the finest strokes. So what I'm going to do is wet part of the background and wet part of the cat. So I'm only going to avoid wetting the eyes, and the only reason is because the eyes are very light in color. So I started diluting this, you mean that's a long yellow, and I go back. I started working with the red, but of course it kind of dried out a little bit because I was wetting the paper for like, I guess 5 minutes. And then there's my burnt sienna. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. And then there's my Van Dyke Brown here. So you don't want colors to be overly diluted with water. And there's my cobalt blue. phthalo blue, primary blue, more water. So I'm gonna blend these colors very gently on the palette and do all this mixing on the paper mostly. The red, maybe cobalt blue, red. I want this to be more like a half and half, like ratio between white and paint. All the blues, including the indigo. And I feel like I have already too much water on my brush, so I'm gonna wipe it a little bit. I just want it to be like a heavy cream. Something like this where I can still see the shades of different colors, like so I'm not overly mixing them. Now this is the lighter area, right? And I already applied some color there. I want to have that blue undertone everywhere. I'm gonna grab a little more color. And every time you're grabbing these blues or whatever it is, you always like the ratio between the colors itself, it changes, okay? So we want to have undertones. And so try to apply these shades of blue, whatever you see, actually some blue in there. We're gonna lift colors too, just FYI. And yes, I applied here like a little more color, even though it's so light. It's because, like I said earlier, sometimes we actually don't apply enough of these undertones and the cat becomes too light. And when it's too light, it's like we end up adding these darks, like so many darks, that then it just the contrast is too much, and then it's like we have to almost re-wet the area and add another layer, which I don't want to do. So I'm going a little darker than normal. But feel it out because it's always better to go darker. I'm sorry, it's always better to go lighter than too dark. And even though like, okay, it's blue violet, I still like it and I want it because I need different undertones, the shades of that blue. And I'm still ways away from like completing the painting because I still have to add the darks. And now we grab indigo, and this is where I want the browns as well. So this is my black, right? This is how I create a shade of black, but I want more of that burnt sienna. We can see the brown right over there. Now you want to apply all this, the darker shades, our black basically that we're creating now. You want to do all this while the paper is still wet. So everything needs to be the same wet, like or similar like when we first started. This is like the burnt sienna, quinacridone red, all of it. And I'm gonna go for these darker areas. Now, different side of my brush will actually have a different shade of a color in a way. It's just because I'm trying not to mix colors on my palette. I just grab the colors, but here's the nose. So let's see here. This is the area that needs to be darker. I need more blue in it. So I have every color from my palette basically on my brush. It's just now I have to preserve the highlighted parts. And so I have the blue undertones and I'm still gonna show them, but I also need to apply the darks. And I need to be careful because it's easy to overdo it with the darks too. And like here, I want to shape. I don't have to shape it like now. It's okay if I don't shape it all the way, but it would be nice to have it. Here, I feel like I went too far, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I can always try to lift too, but I think I'll be okay. So I do actually need to lift underneath this eye because it got a little too dark. So overall, I captured the, I have the muzzle here, right? And I can work on some of these other parts later. What I need to do is grab a rigger brush. This is my rigger brush. Actually, scratch that. Before that, I want to grab my round 8 golden one. What I need to do is add a little bit of yellow. It might be a little late, but I want some of this yellow here just to show a little bit. I just need a little color different than what we've been using.
If the areas after masking seem too harsh, like too bright white, you don't like it, you can always reactivate the color next to the whiskers. It's like you reactivate it, and then some color bleeds over, or you push that color over the whiskers or hair. I didn't apply that much of the masking, so there's not that much to remove overall. So this is a round 3, my songbird detail brush. I'm just gonna go over it until I reactivate color next to it, and I'll just drag it over it. This way my the masking fluid lines are not gonna be as bright white. I think it's just not important to actually grab a paint and try to color these since they are so thin, but you can just drag the paint from reactivating color next to it. I'm looking at the reference, like maybe here too, just in case it doesn't feel right to have these bright whiskers. Yeah. So let me know if you have any questions. When I see that the highlight has some color in it, and in this case it's like a blue violet, so phthalo blue with some quin red, that's when I know, okay, this is going to have that undertone layer. And so when you look at the highlight, this part is kind of really like white almost, and then you have the blue.